Hello, welcome to the first episode of 2024's Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown Show. If this is your first experience with us on Fight Morning, what we typically do is breeze through all of the fights. Today we have 11 matchups, 9 of which are currently favored to end inside the distance, and we'll walk through each fight with a concise, thorough, authentic breakdown. This is something that I've been doing for a long time, and we're looking forward to our 7th consecutive winning tracked betting record. So let's do this. Let's do this. We have Magomed Ankalaev taking on Johnny Walker for the second time. They're going to be running it back here, and let's get things kicked off with the first fight of the night, which is down at 125 pounds. And we've got Joshua Van taking on Felipe-Bunes. Felipe-Bunes coming in as the plus 225 underdog. You'll notice that Joshua Van, only 22 years of age. He is extremely undersized for the division. He also has a fairly short reach, and that didn't stop him in his last fight, where he ended up closing the distance on Kevin Borjas and finding the target. He didn't really respect what was coming back at him. This is Joshua Van we're speaking about. He marched forward. He got clipped a few times in the opening round, and it seemed to me that Joshua Van, at this stage in his career, you see him as a minus 278 betting favorite. I have some concerns at that number. There are some holes in his game. We did see at the end of the Borjas fight, the third round, he showed some fight IQ, took that fight to the mat, and he's a developing fighter. And I will say, when you watch him fight, there are some of his tendencies. He reminds me of, or he fights like a poor man's version of Max Holloway. The way he's a high pressure volume boxer, and you don't see too much action on the mat. Now, on the other side of the fight here, you have Felipe-Bunes, who is the much taller, lankier fighter with a much more developed jiu-jitsu game to speak of. Now, he's much older also. Bunes, 34 years of age. I watched some of Bunes's fights over in Russia. I believe it was an ACA matchup where he ended up taking a loss and did not look great. He also, this is a fight where Felipe-Bunes was supposed to take on Dennis Bondar. Dennis Bondar is probably, if not between Malcolm Gordon and Jimmy Flick, Dennis Bondar's right up there as far as the weakest links in the flyweight division. And you watch Felipe-Bunes must have been licking his chops for this matchup. Now, he's coming in here as a significant underdog, but he does have a full camp under his belt, and he's going to have a big-time reach advantage. He does throw with intent, but he also leaves himself wide open there. So I'll be picking Joshua Van here, but there's no way I'm laying anything close to minus 270, minus 280. I saw on my Twitter timeline, a lot of folks have parlayed Joshua Van up here. And you have to realize this kid's only 22 years of age. I know he's got some slick striking, but his striking defense isn't that great. He seems to just get popped on the button, march forward. And granted, he seems to have a very bright future, but 22 years of age, short for the division, undersized. I think that he's got a ways to go to become a contender at this division, but Felipe-Bunes also a lower tiered flyweight. So I see Joshua Van getting this done. Next up, we talk Tom Nolan taking on Nicholas Motta. Watch back Nicholas Motta's fight against Trey Ogden, and you saw the potential for a broken fighter here. Motta was getting picked apart. As Daniel Levy said in a tweet, he responded to me. He said he made Trey Ogden look like Muhammad Ali out there with his jab, peppering it, throwing it out there, and Motta's head movement was not anywhere near close to being what's expected of a UFC fighter in there. And Motta could not close the distance. And he's taking on Tom Nolan here, who you want to talk fighters who use their range and lanky, tall, explosive fighters. Tom Nolan, he is fairly new to this game, though. He's coming in with only a 6-0 professional record, and Tom Nolan's been stopped on the regional scene, I believe, in the third round in 2018. So this isn't a perfect fighter either. Nolan crashes the pocket. Both of these fighters will crash the pocket, and somebody's going down. You look at Fight Doesn't Go the Distance here. It's sitting at minus 1,200. That is sick to see a line like that. And folks out there are going to lay that number. Motta, you saw last time out the submission that was applied to him. He protested the stoppage. They ruled it a no contest. He was bailed out, folks. He was bailed out in that spot. And Tom Nolan here, very explosive fighter. I think that if he's able to land a couple of strikes, Motta shell-shocked after the Manny Torres elbow. And that could happen to anybody out there. You get hit with an elbow like that, your life is typically changed forever. And Motta here, I see he could land on Nolan, and Nolan could end up falling like an accordion, folding up like an accordion if Motta hits the target. But look at the amount of distance he's going to have to close to catch Nolan. It's going to be a tough act here. But Nolan, striking defense a little bit underdeveloped as well. So this is a volatile matchup. I'm going to be picking Tom Nolan, and I think he gets it done inside the distance. Also, you watch the weigh-ins, and Nicholas Motta looked flabby. He looked chunky, man. It did not look like the same guy out there. Compare his weigh-ins to his previous fights, and he's getting back in there. It does not look good, man. Does not look good for Nicholas Motta. But I'm going to be picking Tom Nolan. No way I'm laying a minus 345 on that fight. Let's take a look. We've got a bunch of fight fans in the comment section. It's a new year. Coffee's flowing. Good morning. Yes. Donnie, good morning. Let's get what's ours today and start the year off right. Afternoon, gentlemen from Ireland. Shady, great to see you. Fight ends by KO. Best way to play it? Possibly. And we'll talk about another fight that may end by KO up and down the card. But Gian Silva taking on Weston Wilson. Now, you might want to ask yourself, how did Weston Wilson get here? Well, he took on Joe Anderson Brito and got completely blown out of the water. And this is a mercy booking here for Weston Wilson. And he's taking on Gian Silva, who went the distance on his Contender Series matchup. And he's a fighter who, you look at the way he stepped onto the scales, just icy stare into the cameras, letting it be known that he's here for a day of reckoning. And I believe that Gian Silva is going to push a pace and take Weston Wilson out of there. Weston Wilson has almost a Nico Price-esque physique. And you watch Weston Wilson's fights. I know a lot of folks talk about his ground game, but he's also been submitted by, I believe I saw Gogo Plata that was applied to him, and he ended up tapping out there. And Weston Wilson here, this, I believe, is his ticket back home. I don't think that we're going to see him succeed under the bright lights here. He's seems happy to just be here, just make it. And one thing when I watch UFC fighters, I want to see fighters who consider themselves fighters after they've won that first UFC fight. Some folks don't acknowledge me until I win the UFC fight that I take part in. So I think that Weston Wilson, he has got a lot of shortcomings. He is game. So even just to sign on the dotted line to take on Joe Anderson Brito ended up earning him a mercy booking here against Gian Silva. And Silva, although he's giving up a lot of size here, his aggressiveness is going to probably be Weston Wilson's demise. So also look at this. Fight doesn't go the distance. Minus 1,600. Whoa. So you look at ways of attacking this fight, even the under 1.5 is juiced big time, big time. So I recommend taking your plate of food. Maybe you cook yourself a nice steak and go slice that baby up. Let it rest before you slice it up, and then take a few bites of your delicious steak during this fight. Now we have Farid Basharat taking on Taylor-Lapilus. I watched this line move erratically at times. Basharat was sitting at minus 170 at one point. Now he's been bet up all the way to minus 285, and he's taking on Taylor-Lapilus, who is a UFC retread, but he is somebody who's come back and really developed his game. We saw him against Marvin Vittori's mini twin, Loughran, in France, and he was able to put that kid away, little blockhead. And Basharat should come in here and pose some different stylistic problems for Lapilus. Basharat, a highly intelligent fighter who seems to make many of the right decisions when he's inside of the octagon, coming in with an 11-0 professional record. And I think that this just isn't the time for me to fade the Basharat brothers and Farid in this specific spot. I think that he will walk away with a victory here, but I'm also not comfortable laying a minus 285 at the betting window. I think Lapilus, I've seen his cardio on display. I've seen his footwork. I've seen his range striking ability. And I don't think this fight is going to spend a significant time on the mat. So I also believe that this fight will end via decision. And you look at fight goes to a decision is sitting at minus 225 this morning. So that may be a play for folks if that is your fancy. Also, Farid Basharat via decision. Take a look at that line. I believe that's a little bit more playable than the current money line for Farid Basharat. Give me Basharat to win this fight. It comes down to me just not being comfortable fading Farid Basharat against someone like Taylor-Lapilus. Taylor-Lapilus is going to have to thread the needle here to walk away victorious, because Farid Basharat doesn't make any catastrophic errors. At least we haven't seen them yet to this stage. But give me Basharat there. Now, this is an interesting fight. We have Gaston Bolanos taking on Marcus McGhee. Marcus McGhee coming in as the minus 250 betting favorite. And he's a fighter who took a short notice replacement bout. I believe it was, let's see. Oh, you know what happened? He took on Journey Newsom and outworked Journey Newsom. And you like to see it. You like to see the short notice replacement fighters come in and do some damage there. Marcus McGhee is a fighter who also came in and destroyed JP Buys, but who doesn't destroy JP Buys? McGhee is a fighter who is coming out of the MMA lab. He poses numerous threats, and Bolanos is going to throw heavy strikes. He's going to stay live in many bouts because he's extremely aggressive. A Peruvian fighter who he's a blood and guts type of fighter, and rudimentary to some degree. When you watch Bolanos fight, he is a bit of a brawler out there, and McGhee has multiple facets to his fight game. And I think that is going to be the difference maker, because McGhee can pose a threat on the mat as well as on the feet. And I know that both of these fighters are no spring chicken here. You look at Marcus McGhee, 33 years of age with only a 8-1 professional record. So he's got to get on the gas pedal as far as career activity goes. And then Bolanos is 31 years of age. I'm going to be picking Marcus McGhee here. Not comfortable laying anything over minus 200 on McGhee. And If we do not get that number, that's something I'm comfortable with. But give me Marcus McGhee in that fight. And I think that there's a high probability that he gets this done inside the distance. You look at fight doesn't go the distance, currently sitting at minus 280. Now, there's a fascinating matchup that I'm looking forward to next. But before we get there, JP Taylor says, Lapilus is getting disrespected a little here. I see several options for parlay bettors to lose their money on this card. Lapilus takes a round off Basharat. Possibly. And you're hitting the plus 3.5 prop there. So good on you. I hope that cashes for you. I'm not touching that fight from a betting perspective, but I respect your game. So good luck there. Now, let's talk Matt Semelsberger versus Preston Parsons. Both of these fighters have come up short in previous matchups. Semelsberger most recently against Uros Medic. It's interesting. Semelsberger has moments where he looks fabulous, and then he makes some mistakes. He can't get up from bottom, and he's fighting a pressure-heavy fighter who also came up short against Trevin Giles last time out, and Preston Parsons was not able to get it done. Still only 28 years of age for Preston Parsons. He has his own gym. If you watch the interview with John Coe, you'll see Parsons, he can push a pace, but he can get clipped on the way in. And Semelsberger has a nasty 1-2. Granted, there are some aspects of his game that have not been developed, and we've seen that on full display. He's an unfinished fighter. Almost, when I think of Matt Semelsberger, I think of the land of misfit toys, and I think of a fighter who is just missing a couple of pieces to his game that would bring him to a much more competitive level. And he's been close to winning numerous fights. I know he took a win off of Jake Matthews, which was pretty impressive there. But this spot, both of these guys have decent cardio. Both of these guys can push a pace. The problem is Semelsberger spends so much damn time off his back that I have concerns here against Preston Parsons. And Parsons, granted, he doesn't have a fabulous wrestling pedigree, but it seems to be better than Semelsberger's football background. And Semelsberger's, look at his record too. It's 11-6. So these are things that you typically sure up before you turn pro. And Semelsberger hasn't done that. And Preston Parsons, 10-4, but Parsons 28 years of age. I think Parsons has a bit of a brighter future here. And I'm going to be picking Parsons. And I believe Parsons was the dog here at one point. So give me Preston Parsons in that matchup. Now, we got some additional comments here. Glenn says the over 1.5, 8 of the 10 of their last fights. Interesting. All right. Now, we'll talk Waldo Cortez Acosta. Look at this betting line, folks. Minus 700. JP, you say you're on the under. Interesting. In the previous fight. So Waldo Cortez Acosta minus 700, and he's taking on Andrei Arlovski, who is 44 years of age. It's interesting, man. It's interesting. Arlovski is the same age as myself, 44 years of age, and he's still hanging around, still going strong. But let's be honest, the wheels seem to be falling off for Andrei Arlovski, a fighter who the longevity at his level at heavyweight, 34 wins and 22 losses professionally at heavyweight. That is wild. And to know that Andrei Arlovski was brutally knocked out in his first mixed martial arts fight, his first pro mixed martial arts fight. You talk about getting back on the horse again. That is incredible. So Arlovski now plus 500. It seems like there's some value on Arlovski here, but I'm not touching this fight. I think that Waldo or Cortez Acosta, he has the ability to win this fight through his plotting nature and throwing out his strikes, his volume, his peppering of opponents. Both of these fighters have identical reach, and I expect a large contingency of ATT teammates to be supporting Andrei Arlovski here, which, if this fight ends up going long, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Arlovski's hanging around and making this a competitive fight at some point. Fight doesn't go the distance, is sitting at minus 250, but is the chin finally gone? Are you willing to bank on the chin, on that the chin has left Andrei Arlovski? Because that's what's happening here as far as what the odds suggest. But Cortez-Acosta, the much younger fighter, granted, he hasn't fought nearly the level of competition of Andrei Arlovski. 32 years of age. You've got a 12-year age difference. And look at the professional record, 10-1. The discrepancy in experience is incredible. But this is a young man's sport, typically. Typically it is. And I'll be picking Waldo Acosta. Waldo Cortez-Acosta. Let's see. That's fair, JP. I get the stylistic semi-KO. There's some banter going on in the comments section here. We could thread a needle on it. Both could win. I could see that happening. So the pick's going to be Waldo Cortez-Acosta. Do I bank on him finishing Andrei Arlovski? Not necessarily. I think that even though the fact that Arlovski is 44 years of age, he still has shown that he at times doesn't necessarily engage, and he can skirt on the outside of the cage and try to make this a close fight. And you talk about fighters who skirt on the outside of the cage, and one bout that I was on here prior to it getting canceled was Manel Kape taking on Matheus Nicolau. And Matheus Nicolau makes a living skirting on the outside of the cage and using his counter striking. And you see Manel Kape come in at 129.5 pounds. And what happens here? Man, they say he was sick. He comes out, says he was sick. The fight's accepted. 25% of the purse is going to Matheus Nicolau, and they cancel the fight. Now, I had my only play for this entire UFC card. I got in on Manel Kape. I'm a fan of picking my spots, and my only play for this card was Manel Kape at minus 170, minus 198, and minus 225. So we not only beat the market by a significant margin, but also I risked 2.5 units, and that's the most amount of units risked on any single play back since November of last year. So it's a situation where I was putting many of my eggs in one basket, and I ran the tape, and we put ourselves in a really good spot there. But what it came down to is, I believe Manel Kape did not take the weight cut as seriously as he should have, and didn't put in the necessary work to cut down to 126 pounds. And he probably thought that this fight was a cakewalk, and it likely would have been if he made it to the octagon. But there's a fight before the fight, and that is on the scales. And we've seen Manel Kape come up short in the past on the scales, and that's a cause for concern here. He had a path to the flyweight title lined up before us, and it's honestly sickening to see that happen. So I'm not here to force action on any plays, and we did have a solid number here, but now the lines have continued to marinate over the past 2 weeks or so in the lead up to this matchup. Odds have been out for a long time now. So on fight day, there are some lines that come back into a region where they're playable, and we'll see. I may end up pulling the trigger on a few additional plays here if the numbers come into a playable area. And I'm not here to force action. Just because a bet was canceled does not mean you need to go out of your way to find another spot on the card. Now, let's talk chins that have been cracked. Phil Hawes is a fighter who has come up short a number of times after looking spectacular early in fights. He is a tremendous wrestler, and he is a very explosive fighter who has many, many tools. But the one tool he is missing is having a chin that will hold up until the final bell. I was at Phil Hawes's previous fight against Ikram Alaskarov, and I was sitting next to Phil Hawes's teammates and family in the crowd, and it was, man, he was from North Bergen, Jersey, and the fight took place in Newark. So there was a large contingency of fans came out to the Rock theme song. So um, the the Rock was rocking, no pun intended, in Newark, and he came crashing down, man. That was one of the most brutal knockouts I've seen, and I've seen some pretty nasty ones. You want to talk brutal knockouts? Go watch back Andrei Arlovski versus Sergey Karitanov. That was a pretty bad one as well, but I've seen a number of them, and Phil Hawes getting brutalized there after early success too was a cause for concern. Now, he is massive for the division here, Phil Hawes. He's towering over Bruno Ferreira, and he could put he could put a beating on Bruno Ferreira and put on a wrestling clinic on Bruno Ferreira, who is a bit of a front runner. I was at Borgata Sports, or the Borgata Hotel and Sportsbook, where in Jersey, when Bruno Ferreira took on RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez, and we saw Ferreira was not thwarted. He was not intimidated. He used those stiff punches to floor Gregory Rodriguez. And here I see Phil Hawes having some early success, and then one strike ending the night. One strike could end the night. Bruno has KO'd 5 of his last 6 against one of the chinniest fighters on the roster. You took Bruno's money line, and fight ends via KO. I do see this fight ending via KO. I think that is the most likely outcome. Bruno Ferreira, we also must realize that he's been knocked out as well recently. So I don't think this fight's going to hit the scorecard. You look at the way this fight doesn't go the distance, minus 1,100. Come on now, my brothers. And you look at Phil Hawes here, chiseled, ready to go. Can he keep this up for 15 minutes without getting chin checked? That is the question. That may be a tough hill to climb for him. I'll be picking Bruno Ferreira. I think that even though he's outgunned in many respects here, as far as his size, as far as takedown defense, as far as gas tank goes, I think that Ferreira, it only takes one strike for him to end this fight. And unfortunately, I think that Phil Hawes should have retired a number of fights ago. But here he is. I believe he was in one of the Paul brothers corners during a boxing exhibition. What is going on here? Why is Phil Hawes still fighting? But hey, he may, if he's able to avoid getting cracked, then there's a path to victory for Phil Hawes. But I'm picking Bruno Ferreira there. Now, let's talk Ricky Simón taking on Mario Bautista. This could be the main event of the evening, could be the co-main event of the evening, but it's on the main card. Unfortunately, we lost Manel Cap versus Mateus Nicolau. And by the way, if you wouldn't mind pausing to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down in the comment section, that'll be a big help for us as we continue this journey. I previously mentioned to open the broadcast, I'm heading towards my 7th consecutive tracked winning betting year. And it all starts with one fight at a time. So thank you for checking in. So Ricky Simón, he's sitting at minus 180 right now. We know he has a significant wrestling advantage here. And Mario Bautista left a lot to be desired in his last matchup, taking on a short notice replacement opponent. And you saw the longer the fight went, he was put in some really tough spots. And Ricky Simón has a path to victory here if he's unable to avoid the submission attempts of Mario Bautista and the striking acumen, the explosive striking acumen of Mario Bautista. Mario Bautista is a solid striker. He's also very unpredictable, flying knees, and he's huge. He's huge for the weight class, for 135 pounds. So interesting fight. Bautista, the younger fighter, and you look at the strength of competition as well. Just imagine what Ricky Simón would have done to Guido Canetti and Benito Lopez. Are you kidding me? Ricky Simón has been in there against some really tough opponents, coming off of a loss to Song Yadong. And Song Yadong, I honestly believe that he could pose a serious threat at the title here if he's able to get by Petr Yan. In this spot, Ricky Simón has the ability to mat return and mat return over and over again Mario Bautista. And I could see Bautista getting deflated as the fight goes on, getting the morale goes down, the gas tank gets drained. Ricky Simón, he submitted Jack Shore. I was at that fight, and I was impressed, very impressed with his physicality and his performance there. And I wouldn't be surprised. This may be a hot take, but I could see Ricky Simón going for a takedown against the cage, a double leg, a blast double, and I could see Mario Bautista pulling a guillotine here, jumping guillotine, and locking in a submission for Mario Bautista. But that is a path to victory for Bautista. Man, 15 minutes is a long time. And I could see Ricky Simón making a mistake on the mat, but I could also see Mario Bautista being comfortable on his back and Ricky Simón burning time in top position. So I think this line could be a little bit closer. I'm going to be picking Ricky Simón, but don't rule out Mario Bautista by submission. Look at that number. I think that there is the potential for Bautista there. I think that line is a bit wide. I think that there's some value on Bautista via submission. Keep an eye out for that one. But give me Ricky Simón, and I think that he gets this done by decision. And you look at the fight goes to decision sitting at -165. So interesting spot there. Now, co-main event of the evening, Jim Miller, who was once an underdog, now on Fight Morning is sitting at -148. And he's taking on Gabriel Benitez, who both of these fighters, no spring chicken. If this fight hits the second round, both of these fighters could be potentially running on fumes. And we've seen that happen many, many times for Jim Miller. And Gabriel Benitez, you talk about a fighter who's been deflated emotionally over a few fights. Does a win over Charlie Ontiveros really get you going? Does that instill confidence? Ontiveros, remember that fight against Kevin Holland? That was one of the most brutal finishes we've seen in the history of the sport. But Gabriel Benitez took out basically a straw man in Charlie Ontiveros, and we know he's got the kicks. Everybody's talked about that. It's been part of his game for a long time. But Jim Miller can close the distance. He can find the back. He can, the grizzled, wily veteran who's trending towards competing at UFC 300. Let's hope he gets through this fight unscathed, doesn't suffer any injuries. And by the way, props to Jim Miller for never missing weight in his professional mixed martial arts career. That is an impressive feat. And he should chat with Manel Cap because, man, you talk about people who are on the cusp of title fights. Jim Miller, he came so close so many times. JP got Jim at +102. Interesting. I could see Jim Miller walking away victorious. And the other thing is Jim Miller, yes, I'm picking Jim Miller to win here. But also, when you're talking of a seasoned, grizzled veteran out there, there is the potential for fighters to get injured during these bouts as well. And when you're getting up there in age, ribs popping, there is a possibility of that happening, but I'm going to be picking Jim Miller here. And I think that the submission is a real threat. I'll be looking to play this fight live as it's playing out. Gabriel Benitez, I think that his confidence is shaken, and Jim Miller's confidence is riding high, and Miller is live early and has the potential to finish this fight in the first round. So take a look at Jim Miller, first round. I think that he honestly gets this done pretty quickly. But the other thing is, if this fight gets extended, and if both of these fighters can throw leg kicks, actually, I was at Jim Miller's fight against Dustin Poirier, and I was very impressed. This was a number of years ago, but I was very impressed with Jim Miller's ability to commit to leg kicks. Now, does it come at a cost, though? We've seen the gas tank could be drained on either side here. Give me Jim Miller to win, the grizzled veteran. Now, main event of the evening. Let's see. Glenn says biggest bet of the card for him is Miller, plus 105. Let's see. Good luck tonight, Mike. Shame about Manel, but might have been for the best. Yeah, you don't want to fight with a virus. Well, that's the thing. There are going to be spots ahead that we'll be able to attack in the lead up to future cards. And I put out a number of free plays for the UFC 297 card. We got in on Charles Jourdain at minus 115. That was put up. I put that up at Twitter and also at my betmma.tips site. I also posted Jillian Robertson at minus 142, and that went up to my Twitter account when the line was available. So now that I believe Robertson's sitting at minus 220, and last time I checked, Jourdain was minus 185. So I do have a number of free plays for future cards, and just check the betmma.tips site. I will be going up with more plays for additional fights as the year progresses, but I'm also not here to just make plays for the sake of making plays. I want to be able to win as well. So let's talk main event of the evening: Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. This is a rematch, folks. This is a rematch, and we have what we saw in Abu Dhabi was a composed Magomed Ankalaev who was almost caught by a Johnny Walker who was playing possum. There was millimeters make the difference, right? And he was able to slide just a bit out of range and avoid getting clipped by that flying knee. Most fighters, if that lands, you're out cold. And here in this spot, you look at Ankalaev, and he's fought the who's who. The Jan Blachowicz fight, we saw Joe Rogan interviewing Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz says, give Magomed the belt, right? I've spoken many times before about Ankalaev. One loss on his record, and we know his in-fight IQ has been a bit of an issue. But also, he took Walker down, and he was mat returning Walker, and ended up, when Walker got back to his feet, or was working his way back to his feet, right? He didn't completely get back to his feet. That errant knee ended up catching Walker on the head, and that's all she wrote. So the no contest, and you talk about time in your prime away from the octagon. This is a situation where Ankalaev, he was forced to fight Iwan Kudalaba a couple of times, and I believe there were matchups that got pulled that never actually made it to the fight against Iwan Kudalaba. And this spot, Ankalaev has the wrestling, he has the range management, he has the ability to fight in the clinch, he has the ability to win this fight in a number of different areas. But one thing that causes me concern is Johnny Walker's unpredictability. And we know, as far as athletic prowess goes, Johnny Walker, he can close distance with the best of them. And if he wants to commit to his strikes, you better watch out, because anybody, Magomed Ankalaev could get clipped. He could get put down. And Thank you, Loner. I appreciate the sentiment, the comments here. So Magomed Ankalaev, I'm not going to be playing him at minus 520. I do think this fight ends inside the distance, and you look at that line also, minus 450 to end inside the distance. That's a tough pill to swallow as well. I think Ankalaev gets this done inside the distance, but I also believe that Johnny Walker is live here. I think that there is a little bit of value on Walker at the money line number plus 390, but I'm not playing that. I think that what we're going to see here, and I've considered Ankalaev the best light heavyweight on planet Earth. I think we're going to see him pick his spot and make Johnny Walker look silly at times during this fight. And we've seen Johnny Walker, he commits to his strikes, and then he will put his chin on a silver platter. And we've seen Corey Anderson do it. Remember, there are levels, Corey Anderson said. We've seen it. Jamal Hill floored him. And by the way, I think that when Jamal Hill comes back, when he recovers from his torn Achilles, that we'll likely see these two, Magomed Ankalaev and Jamal Hill, lock horns. I believe that Magomed Ankalaev gets this done inside the distance, but I'm not touching the number here. If you do want to try to make a play, that may be the one. I do not advocate for a minus 520 money line betting favorite here. So give me Magomed Ankalaev. And by the way, if you have a question or comment in the comment section that you'd like to leave, feel free to do so. I'll respond to it. First event of the year, first UFC event of the year, and there will be many, many, many more. So don't force any action. Pick your spots, and we're going to get after it today. And thank you for joining me, for waking up this early in the morning. We're at almost 42 minutes for your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show. So cheers to you, my friends. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Let's go.